give or take 30 minutes. It's a little bit flexible in the direction I can go. I kept it quite open to react a little bit to who's coming tonight. I'll basically cover the Habitto story myself, and then a few details that are more in tune with what Norbert said, right? There is this deep interest in the regulatory framework that we're using, so I'll cover a bit of that. So let me start. So I'll start from the very beginning. What is Habitto anyway? We're a new FinTech startup in Japan. And to summarize a little bit what it is, it's a mobile app, mobile only in fact, it's our strategy. It is a cross-vertical financial experience. And it offers customers in Japan a yield-generating savings account, comes with a cash/debit card, and it gives you curated access to asset management and insurance products, starting with life products. All of that is done with a human interface in mind. We're not a robo play. We are very in tune with the idea that humans and human interaction is an important component of the financial experience. So, in order to explain a little bit more what Habitto is, I just wanted you guys to have the image and the description of what it is so I can lead my way into there. And this is us. We're already trademarked as a brand, which is an interesting milestone for us. There is a lot to the name as well, which I'll unpack a little bit. And this is the regulatory part, right, which I will go back to it there, but I just wanted to just flash it now so you guys understand it. We are an intermediary license holder in Japan, the fifth to have it. Kind of the first led by Gaijin people to receive it. And there are subcomponents to it, and those subcomponents are even expanding as we speak, and our offering kind of pushed a certain expansion of that offering as well. I'll go back to this. And we're proud members of FinTech Association of Japan, and there's a connection to Singapore, which I'll explain in more detail. And we're part of FISC as well, and a few other memberships that are, JFIM is the regulatory body that is new in relation to this intermediary license as well. So all members are there. There's some level of self-regulation that happens in that body. So, and we're Shibuya based. That's our office there in Jingumai. At the moment we're here. We've been here for about a year since the country reopened, even though we're funded previously to that. We had to wait a little bit to come into Tokyo. But let me start from the beginning, right? My name is André. So I'm rewinding a little bit here. I'm born and raised in Brazil. I've lived in a few different places, US, Italy, Dubai, Singapore for 8 years. And then I recently moved to Japan, so it's a recent thing to me. Still navigating it and learning the language and stuff, so baby steps in that layer. I've had these titles so far. I'm not from this financial services industry. My background is in marketing and advertising. I started as a designer and art director and creative director. And then at some point in my career, about 6 years ago, I started consulting and doing more projects. And it was around when, websites were transitioning to apps and services were migrating towards the phone. And these services, not only visually, there was a big kind of, people like me that were graphic designers, they had to do this kind of re-education of what it meant to design for phones. But at the same time, the companies were discovering that the phones come with context and a lot more data and a lot more controls and camera and geolocation and things like that. So these business models started changing. And I was already a designer. I had done a lot of digital advertising, a lot of website projects. And instantly at that moment, I knew that there was some Cambrian explosion moment here, and lots of businesses would need their business models to be redesigned for the mobile age. So I started kind of migrating out of advertising. Advertising was going in the opposite direction, continues to go in the opposite direction, disintermediated by the tech players, and harder and harder to just be a pure play creative person in that career. So I had this little pivot in the middle. And the other tiles that you see are in this direction that I had of becoming more of a product designer or product owner and entrepreneur. And my journey in FinTech started in Switzerland when I took a project with a company called Smile Direct. Smile Direct was a company that out of the Helvetia group, and I had a friend that led me into that project, and they came in with a really interesting proposition. They had a branding problem or brief, and I came in to help there. But shortly after, the next problem was a change in strategy. Was this, again, this strategy away from websites and into mobile. And they asked me, do you want to come back to Zurich and have a go at this strategy? So it was my first exposure to InsurTech. They are a general insurance player, and they had a really novel approach to that. So that was a great project, and I felt at that point in time that my skills in advertising and design were really needed in this financial services space. Everyone was like really surprised with simple things that in the advertising world were commonplace, and the design world were commonplace, but in financial services they were like, wow, this is really cool. And I was surprised, like if that's the case, then there's a lot I can do here. And I started just chasing these projects a little bit more. The next one that took a good deal of my time was back in Singapore. I was already going in and out at that time into projects as a consultant. So Liam, who's we're working together at Habitto at this point in time, asked me over to come back to Singapore and help him work with this entrepreneur founder that had a life insurance. He held a life insurance license in Singapore. They were selling term life on a website, and it was a similar brief. It was like, there's a branding problem, but there's also a business strategy and a platform change. They want to go towards away from web and towards mobile. So I was like, well, I've done this before. I can definitely help. So I did helped on the branding side first, which was really interesting and a good challenge for me. And then soon after, there was the possibility or opportunity to join them as a product designer, owner, and had many titles there during the time. So that was where I learned the most in FinTech and InsurTech space, and where I started understanding the regulatory space in more detail, where I understood the challenges of working with compliance teams, and I understood the challenges of working directly with the regulator for the first time. But Singapore is a special place, right? It's a very streamlined place, and depending on your relationship with the regulator, things move very fast. And we were lucky. We got a lot of innovation into with the help of the regulator at that point in time into this product, and it just flew by. Like, we associated a debit card with a life insurance policy, which at that point in time we were not aware of anyone doing that. There was some access to liquidity there, that money held in that variable term policy. So that speak forward a little bit. It was acquired or merged in this big transaction led by private equity with Aviva. Aviva was letting go of some operations in some markets, and they became Aviva Singlife eventually. And at that point in time, the company changed a lot. It became a massive company. It was no longer a startup the way I was, used to, and fast and scrappy and doing things quickly. And at that point in time, I decided that that environment was not my environment. Together with a few other people that were in that business as well, we decided to look out for opportunities and take some of that knowledge into other markets. So that leads us to why Japan, right? So at that point in time, this group of people started looking out for opportunities, and it was kind of like COVID times. So there was a lot of, in many different countries, things were changing, spurred by COVID. Manual processes were being revised, things that needed face-to-face interactions were being revised, and different governments were reacting different ways. And we started hearing interesting things from Japan in the way the government was going through another digital push or wanting to be more digital. Hanko stamps were kind of starting to be considered irrelevant. I guess it took COVID to force that conversation. And at the same time, there was this regulatory change that we were hearing that Japan was about to introduce, or considering the introduction of a framework that allowed companies like us that wanted to merge different cross-vertical ideas for them to access a type of license much more easily. So that was a factor as well. Size of the market, obviously, right? There's a lot of money held in bank accounts in Japan, earning 0 to no interest. Second in the world, I think, in terms of that size. So there was an opportunity there to make that money work harder for people. And then the competitive landscape, right? And Japan is known for brilliance in a lot of things technical, but it did seem, and that's the knowledge that a lot of people share, is that on the software layer, on the web layer, it kind of lost a little bit its path and was not as advanced as the others. So there was opportunity there. Unlike places like China, where FinTech services are already miles ahead in terms of mobile friendliness, penetration, and so on. So that's why Japan was a consideration for us. Which brings us back to Habitto, right? Habitto is a project that we considered bringing here with a lot of the learnings of everyone's career so far, but we decided that we wanted to approach this problem again of creating, a savings experience with the card that has this access to investment and insurance as well as you progress in your financial life. But one thing that we felt we wanted to do different, and an insight that we had was that there is a big psychological burden dealing with your financial life and financial choices. No matter how much content is out there in terms of financial decisions on the web, this need for a person to have some type of validation with another specialist and just confirm, hey, you're going in the right direction, you're starting your journey of savings, and then once you start your journey of savings, to move on to the next stages. If you have not started yet, some human support and human guidance was a really important thing. So we incorporated that very early on in the idea and the strategy of this symbiosis of tech and humans, right? So that was part of the idea. So the talk and the whole title of the talk was focused on our product road so far. So I'm going to spend quite a good deal of time on this slide, just picking a few items there. But so Habitto has been here for about on the ground for about a year, but the work started much before that. There was a very heavy research phase, and in that research phase, also we looked at the financial products that existed already, and there are so many, and we keep discovering more. The fact is, there is a product for all kinds of these things that we're packaging at Habitto But sometimes they're not mobile friendly. Sometimes they're not mobile accessible at all. Sometimes they're just very poorly designed. Sometimes they are just not interconnected to anything. So we started feeling good about this idea of cross-vertical as we did that research on the landscape. Then we were always monitoring the government landscape, and particularly on this new intermediary license. There was continued communication that they were wanting to attract people like us. So we continued to listen and prepare for that license. We did some investigation as well, as like, does this license cover the user experience and offering that we want to do? And at that point in time, with the help of a bunch of people, we detected that yes, it would be at least be the right start for us, and later on we could upgrade that regulatory framework towards other things. But as a startup, you got to start somewhere. And then, calculating the addressable market, and how many people are in the state where most of their money is in a bank, not being used for anything, not being put to good use. And so if you're a customer that already are trading heavily in crypto and has 2-3 investment accounts, how does not for you? Our addressable audience is a little bit more this step before, where you're just building your confidence to start your journey in savings and into the other products. And for that, there is a big market in Japan, continues to be a big market. And then what's the investment landscape? And that one, things have changed quite a lot in recent times. When we began, still a very healthy landscape of investment and startups being funded in FinTech. FinTech continued at that point in time to be the hot area among a few other areas. Definitely things have changed since that research phase. Then Japan reopened. It started issuing business visas for the first time after 2-3 years, and we finally got here in Tokyo. And we had a backlog of things to do. Like, we had done so many Zoom calls and met so many potential partners online. So it was this big intense period of handshakes and meetings and dinners and things like that, and where we were really trying to figure out if our research phase was really something that was true, and the need really existed and the partners were ready. We had to find an office, right? If you were a pure B2C play, non-regulated, you kind of can get away with that decision for much longer, but in Japan it's still, for financial services and regulated space, there is this concept and idea of you existing physically somewhere, and there's even some questions around, is your server there, and is it behind a key, and is it protected? So those are things that are just standard. Things are changing, things are evolving, but we needed to find an office and we needed to demonstrate that we exist, so we did that. Then, building the local team, I think for this audience here, you probably already all know, but for people that are not from this market to come into this market and then try to hire and build a team, it's hard. It's one of the hardest things to navigate the whole language spectrum and make those decisions around, okay, this person is super smart but cannot speak, or this person is not super talented but can speak, and just navigating that space of what's the perfect combination. Just arriving into the country is hard, and I've lived in many other places, but here's where that's most salient for sure. Then we started interacting with lawyers and the regulator on the preparation of the license. That took a good deal of time, but I'll explain later the differences between the normal time it would take versus what this new license takes, and it's definitely shorter than that, but it's not a regulatory sandbox. It's not very quick. You still need to go through the motions. So it's in between there of like the traditional spectrum and other countries like Singapore and UK that have sandboxes where you can get up and running very quickly, but you have limitations on size. It's not that, but it's in there in the middle. And then we had to define our brand and message, and that part, easier for me to do it, my partner as well, it comes from marketing background. But we had to suspend all our approach and knowledge being in Japan. Like, things are uniquely different here in Japan, so all of our ideas and intuition of other markets had to be suspended a little bit, and we needed to get more guidance from local people on what works here or not. And then signing up the critical partners. I'm not going to be able to open up too much about who the partners are today because we're about to launch and there's some coordination on that messaging, but no, there are some critical partners we need. We need a banking partner, we need an asset management partner, we need an insurance partner, and we also have all these other stakeholders behind the app that make the app exist, and KYC and car printing and so on and so forth. Then myself personally, I designed the app in English, but this is meant for only Japanese customers, and I had to find a partner. I had to find someone that could help me make that transition into Japanese UX UI very quickly and get to a healthy working relationship with that person as soon as possible so we could transition this over to Japanese. So I've covered the first two. I'm just going to show a little bit where we landed with the brand, right? So in terms of our foundation, we define ourselves, we're for everyone that does not have a strategy for their money, and that's quite a lot of people. And the topic of this conversation as well, this presentation as well, is new generation, new money habits. We did see and found in our research and agency interactions that there is a gap, right? There is a certain way in the raging 90s and that bubble and the way things crashed, that there's a whole generation that reacts to that crash in a certain way, and then now there's a new generation that wants things differently and may not be in tune with the messaging and the approach that this older generation had on how to deal with their finance lives. So we are for this new generation that wants to do things differently in a more modern way and wants to have their financial services be available in their pockets, right next to the apps that they love and use, and they see no difference between the music app and the finance app and the social media app. They should all work and they should all be modern, right? So we're for that type of psychographic audience. And then we have a few principles that we use. I use a lot in the product space, which is simplify, reassure, and motivate. And those principles will manifest a lot in product, but they manifest as well in the way we do procedures and customer service and things like that. And it will be a continued evolution, right? These three guiding principles are quite helpful in giving at least for product-wise the north for where we need to go. And yeah, like covered already, it generated this psychographic that we're interested in, which is this new generation that wants to have new money habits. As you can see, new money habits is where we landed with the name, right? There's a whole story there about having a play on habit and the word habit, and Habitto is the brand. So we're now building this whole layer around new money habits that will make itself manifest itself into the app experience and the content that we create. So going back to that product roadmap so far, or road so far, the part that we're now, shortly before the completion of the proposition was this, we did a beta about 3-4 months ago. We picked a partner, local partner, had a prepaid stack that could emulate quite a lot the functions that we needed to test. So we were successful in doing that, a lot of learnings dealing with these partners on the ground, the do's and don'ts of selling, building those relationships. But the prepaid stack was not enough for our needs, but it was good enough for us to do this customer discovery. And lots of learnings on partnerships across the board and signing contracts and building those relationships and how different it is in Japan for someone like us, and lots of learnings there. Then myself, the UX layer, I had to, again, just like I did with the branding, I had to suspend a lot my intuitions on how UX should be done in Japan, and then just hear more and accept more different ways, and while at the same time not wanting to replicate what currently exists, which I still think can be better. So I cannot give up on that, but the way it should be better, I've been more open-minded about how that looks like, and lots of learnings, and it's still a learning curve for me. Then honing down a little bit on the customer focus, what is, who is our target audience really, and where do we begin? Like, what's our beachhead, and then how do we get from there to larger audiences? And then packaging that all up into an offering, right, or a proposition. So the proposition or the customer journey is simply described here. So app install, you apply for a banking account through our banking partner, which we intermediate. You do the eKYC with this partner. Then you fund, once eKYC is completed, you fund that account. Then from that funding account done, you start your financial advisory experience. And what that means is that you have access to a human advisor through the app to start guiding you towards the next steps. I'll show you a little bit more detail, but once you do that funding, it becomes a little bit non-linear. You can go in the direction of having an interaction with your advisor via video in app. You can also discover content, and you can also just explore the products that are available beyond the banking intermediation. Now that flow, we're pre-launch, right? We're about a month from opening to early access and about 2 months from public. So that flow is bound to change and evolve. This is our proposition to begin with. And the first part, the banking intermediation, there is a yield generating proposition here. The details will be released soon, but basically when you move your money in and out of the banks and into this ecosystem, then you start earning some returns on that money, and you unlock the financial advisor experience. So because you also have a debit card, as cash/debit card, you also have this access to that balance. So there's an element of liquidity here, which is, this is the latest design. A lot of work on the background to get those printed and available in Japan as well. So there is a form of liquidity. There's also money in and money out flows into that account. There's a lot of work to be done on having more options of money in, more options of money out, and a better experience on the card. But we begin with this proposition. And then this is where we feel Habitto is unique and different, which is, like I said, the presence of a licensed in-house financial advisor that can talk to you. We believe that empathy that is needed for you to be validated on your financial decisions is crucial. We're obviously going to learn a lot on this space about how to optimize their time and how to build tools and automation to get their time, the time of these advisors, in the most efficient and scalable way. We're going to put a lot of energy into that, and the good news is that technology is evolving very fast in this space, so there's really interesting solutions there. But it is a human experience, but delivered in the way this new generation wants, which is on their phones when they want it. Japan does have, especially in the insurance world, this still this traditional face-to-face approach, and I think COVID and this new generation, they're in tune with the idea of possibly moving away from that. We're banking a lot on that, right? So there is a whole roadmap just for this layer, which is how that experience evolves, how we gather more data in an efficient way. But the whole purpose of doing it is so that that person can guide you towards the other two layers, which is investment and insurance. So how to maybe maximize a little bit more the savings that you have towards higher returns, and also protect it given your situation and life events and so on. And that sets the tone for a good beginning of your financial life, right? This audience, just a reminder, is someone that is just maybe too afraid to begin and has all their money in a bank account and just doesn't know how to proceed, right? So in terms of where we are, the app is in production. We crossed some interesting milestones very recently, so we have issued accounts already. The whole yield generating component of it is now in progress. We are still, the exposure of the service is still just internal to us. Very soon, we're around mid-April, late April, we're gonna launch to the first cohorts of early access, which we've been building a wait list for. There's also some connectivity to the beta participants of before. So they will be the first to take in the experience, and that's when we're gonna kind of open our ears to what they're saying and use some time to refine and edit things in that full experience for a few more weeks. And then around June, we intend to go live and have everyone download the Habitto app and have the experience. And that's day one, right? We begin there. There will be many iterations of that combination of cross-vertical experiences. I expect it 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the offering to be significantly different. But combined with this regulatory environment that allowed us to start as a scrappy startup, and the experience that we had, I think we have a pretty good first step, and then let's see how far we can push this, grow, also expand our investments along the way, and then see if we can get to 10,000 customers, and then go towards other milestones from there. So if you want to join, please go to the website and habitto.com and just drop your name, mobile there. We'll let you know when it's on. And we're also hiring for certain key roles to support this whole experience. So yeah, that's the Habitto story, and thanks for listening.